He's Josh Anderson.
Yeah, I'm Josh Anderson. Am I supposed to
He's
say
the
you're Bob Galen?
no, no, no. You
No?
just you do whatever you want to do, which is par for the course.
Uh, okay, fine.
Can I give
Uh,
you some? Can I give you some feedback, Josh?
yeah, please do.
You know, you appear to be a little grumpy this morning. I I think I think you need to pump up the sunshine a little bit. Okay.
There's a lot of sun out there right now.
Well, then you need to internalize that sun. You need to let
Hey,
it warm you up.
it's not easy stepping into a recording session with you. You get the audio all messed up, then you blame me, then you
Wait.
start jokes.
All right. Do you know what this is, Josh?
Yeah, I know, the world's smallest
Let's
violin.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What am
yeah.
I supposed to say?
I don't know.
Feedback today. We got some feedback
Yeah.
from someone. What I think what generated, and I didn't read all of it. You were much more
Mhm.
sort of engaged in dialoguing, but we got some feedback on one of our recent.
Well, that's part of what you need to do with feedback, Bob.
I,
Step 1, consume it.
and it's not just the quippy remark; it's the smile on your face that you get before the quippy remark, right?
As it
It's
loads.
as it loads, as you load it, there's the loading, there's the loading
Yeah.
facial expressions, right?
Uh,
And no, you're right, but part of it, to be honest, is we can start the episode this way. I'm a little vulnerable. I don't know if you are. I think you
mhm.
might be because of football and stuff. You might be this super feedback magnet and sponge and able to digest anything
Yeah.
uh, constructively. I'm not wired that way. Uh, I I get defensive, and this is vulnerability on my part. And I've been working on this, so I've gotten better with my defensive posture and my behavior. But
Mhm.
for me, constructive feedback, my initial reaction is to say, no, you are full of crap, or you don't understand. You're giving me a myopic bit of feedback, like from one perspective, and I have a broader view to what's going on, etc. And I start like, and this is all going on inside my head, but I still, and I think this feedback triggered me a little bit. Um, Not that it wasn't the feedback, it was the Metacast is near and dear to my heart, and I'd like to think that every episode is a good one. And when we get critical feedback, and the other thing with me is I like to get balanced feedback, like positive feedback with critical feedback. And I always feel that like sometimes people in the community aren't balanced. They love to give you critical feedback, but you don't always hear positivity, right? And we do
Yeah.
get some. So so what I do in that case is I'll sort of not ignore it, but I'll go through it real fast and then I'll put it on the shelf so I settle myself down, and then I'll go back and digest it. So I'm still in the settle I'm still in the settle period for that feedback. Metacasters, I'm not saying that's in fact, I would judge myself and say that's probably not the best way. My perception on you, Josh, is you just take this stuff and you're smiling and you're whistling Dixie and you're saying, please give me more,
Yeah.
da da da.
I
So you're
The really weird part about me is positive feedback is of little value to me because it doesn't
really
help me get better. Like, yes, I like it. It's nice to hear. It's cool, but it's not functional. It's not something that I can say, okay, cool. Here's how I can refine this. It just like in a review, like anything that says nice stuff, I just skip over. Like this is like performance, like in a job, my boss is right at the
yep.
end of the year or every quarter, however our company did it. There was the feedback that was good, and then there was always the feedback that was at the bottom of like, well, here's the things that you should work on. And like I
eh,
just skipped all of the other stuff and would jump straight to that bottom because that's the thing that I could take action on. So
Okay.
I admit I'm not normal.
No, no,
I'm not
no.
I'm not sure that's healthy. you know, the way that I operate.
I
I
actually
know it's
I actually
been
admire it. Stop, Josh. Let me give you some positive feedback. No, I admire that about you. I think it's a strength. Um, I didn't know about the positive. I think that might be a little over the top. So
yeah,
you can get like you get balanced feedback. You should take that, embrace it, and really appreciate it for
yeah,
yourself. But at the same time, no, I admire your ability to cut through it and take it and internalize it. I get
yeah.
there, but I go through like I go through like a really painful trail to get there. So
And I think you are that's the norm. What I've developed over the years is not normal, and it took me a while to understand that, and that's why I said it might not be healthy. And the part I didn't add was as a leader, because that's
yeah.
how I led people. I didn't value the positive feedback to me, so I did very little of doling it out to our team.
Ah, no,
Not enough when I started, right? So
yeah,
I had to learn that skill. Like it was a skill I had to develop to force myself to not say, "All right, that was good. What do we need to fix?" And like focus on all the air quote bad stuff. It didn't, it was bad. It was just something that we needed to work on. And I didn't do a good enough job of celebrating those small wins for the team. It didn't affect me, but it was something that I, as a leader, had to figure out how to just continuously stream that positive feedback to my teams, because my teams were good, but I
yeah,
wanted them to be great and like world class. So I was always trying to sharpen that saw, even like when the saw was turned off and the blade was in the closet. I was
yep,
still like, we got to make this sharper. So that's a thing that I've had to work on from the side of the spectrum that I'm at. But I think a good thing for us to talk about would be helping others work through the same thing that you're trying to work through and understand the value of that feedback, and being able to disconnect it from your person. That's where that's the thing that I am able to do, is to say, okay, that feedback is here. It doesn't represent me personally, because I know what I did, and
yep,
this person has a view of what I did. But I'm proud of what I've done. So okay, cool. Let me learn from that. But there's some. It's hard to not connect that with yourself, because you pour so much into it. Just like you said, right? It's near and dear to your heart, and when somebody says your baby's ugly,
yep,
that's not comfortable.
yep. The one thing I do, I used to, gosh, God help the people that I reported to early in my career, because if I got constructive feedback, I really sort of went over the top and I got very defensive. Now I've learned to, I have an inside Bob and an outside Bob. So I still have the inside Bob that gets a bit defensive, but the outside Bob is I thank people for the feedback.
Mhm.
And I'm really appreciative for it, right? I really have my mindset that, because I'd rather have it than not have it. Like not having it, you can't take action. So that is to me, that's the anti-pattern. So at least I'm getting it. I may not like it, but I get it. So I'm appreciative with people and I ask for more. The other thing I try to do at the point of attack is clarify it. Not and it's a balancing act so that you don't, you want to ask clarifying questions, but not those obnoxious questions that are not honest and genuine, right? That you're really challenging the feedback rather than really trying to understand it. So I'm much better at the point of attack. And what I'm doing is I'm packaging it up so can go away and digest it later, if that makes sense, right? I know what it is, and then I can go handle it once I once I settle myself internally down. I can go and I can digest it.
Yeah. A lot of people say feedback is a gift and that's how you should treat it. But I think a lot of people say that and don't actually believe it. Like that's a buzzwordy thing to say. I try to explain to people that are struggling with that concept of, it's not easy to walk up to someone virtually or live and say, "Hey, this thing that you're pouring your heart into, I think it could be better if you did X, Y, and Z."
Yep.
So the people providing the feedback care about you and or what you're doing so much that they've dedicated
Yep.
brain power, lots of cycles to say, you know what? There's this thing I really like, and I think it could be better. And they noodle on it and they spend time and come back and
Yep.
say, okay, here's a here's a package, whether it's packaged well or not. They put the effort in to come to
Uh,
you and say, hey, I thought a lot about this. And here's something I think that could help. So it's not just yes, on the internet you get these like off the cuff random comments, that are spur of the moment. That's different. But for real feedback where someone comes to you with views on ways something could be improved, they gave you part of their brain power for a substantial amount of time, and then also have the courage to come and say that to you, which, unfortunately, in my view, many people don't do. So that's how I get people to try and understand that it really is a gift, because in the internet world, social media, you do get in this thing where people are just flinging insults basically because it's easy, it's faceless, all of that stuff.
yep.
So isn't that?
Yep. I would agree. And I'm trying to look on that. Part of my appreciating it is looking at that side of things and
Mhm,
understanding. Um, Recently, I've been reading things and getting feedback from neurodiversity folks that might be bipolar or ADHD, etc. And one of those folks comes to mind, and they sent me feedback on something, not really on Agile. Um, but and then I was thinking, I know that they go through it. I was talking to them, and they'll go through like 6 or 8 iterations, Josh, to get the
mhm,
words right. And the words aren't good. I mean, they're not perfect, but from their point of view, it's a, and I'm like yes anding and, and doubling down on what you said, looking it through their eyes and really appreciating the effort and even assuming positive intent with the effort.
mhm,
Like whenever I get something from this person, I'm like, and it usually just because of where they're coming from, I can usually trigger on it, if that makes sense. But that empathy that
trigger in
I
a good
have
way or a bad way?
in a bad way,
Okay,
I'll still they're giving me hard feedback, or
mhm,
they're suggesting things or doing things that I wouldn't do it that way or whatever. But I'm triggering on it. But then I flip it and I'm like, they put so much effort and they're probably still not explaining it well, right?
mhm,
There's just way so many words. But I agree with that. It is a gift, and if we can flip ourselves, we have to consider it a gift. Otherwise, the counterpoint and Metacasters, this is what can drive you. This was what drives me to receive it well. Is if you don't do that, people are going to shut down. It is a gift from their point. They're putting time and effort into forming it, and if you always deflect, that spigot, that stream of good feedback is going to shut off, and now you're going to be out there in the wilderness and not getting any feedback on your behavior. So that's your counterpoint. So if you want that, great. See how that works for you. But to me, that was my epiphany. It's like I would rather get disgruntled and go through my feedback assimilation curve than get no feedback whatsoever.
yeah, and if you choose to take your career in a leadership direction, you are gonna have to work very hard to foster that environment, because the the air quotes are going around this, the higher you go, the less often you get feedback. So if you don't foster that culture of feedback, it's going to get very lonely and very quiet. It will still be lonely and quiet as a leader, but you can still work to create that environment where people are comfortable and capable of giving that feedback. Another thing from the other side, as far as giving it, there are a lot of people that have said, or I've read about working with friends, and that often ends up in reduced feedback and people don't say the hard things that need to be said to their friends. And I find it completely the opposite. They are my friend. I deeply care about this person. And I would feel like a traitor if there was feedback that I felt they should hear, but because they were my friend, I didn't say it. So I feel an even greater pressure to share more often and more freely with a friend that I'm working with because they are that friend and I don't want to not have their best interest in mind. Not that I don't have the best interest in mind of everybody that is a part of my team, but that's a personal connection that I intend to have for potentially life. So I
Right.
don't want to, be having a conversation in 20 years and say, you know what? Back when we worked at, X, Y, and Z company, you really sucked at this. And I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell me? So
Right.
that's a thing that I don't necessarily buy into a lot of that you shouldn't work with your friends because you do get to a point as a friend where you can have an open conversation and that's a healthy thing.
Well, I think there's two sides to it, though, Josh. Um, the friend has to be receptive. So
Yeah.
there's a receptivity defensiveness scale, and you can still be friends. So if you have a friend that you really care about, but they get defensive a large part of the time, then you're going to filter the feedback, I think, right? At times. You'll step up to the defensive perimeter as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that what I'm suggesting is it takes two to tango in the feedback, right? The
Yeah,
feedback
it's
dance, right?
a delivery decision at that point as far
Yeah.
as how I handle that with them, which is not different than how you have to handle every member of your team, is you have to understand how feedback is best received by each person because it's not gonna be a one size fits all. It's gonna be a thing that you're gonna have to work through based on personality, work experience, the path they have to hear. Maybe they had very oppressive leaders in the past and they've been shut down, or they're used to that feedback. So there's all these variables that go into continually making the world of leadership difficult. But
But
that's
back to your
kind of
friends,
the fun part.
it's also I think of someone that I know who I coach, who's a friend, a colleague, if you will, in our space, and I've given him feedback over years. And what I've noticed, I'm just using this as an example. This is not you, Josh, but I've noticed that it doesn't work. He doesn't internalize the feedback. So at some point, we're friends. So one, we're friends.
Mhm.
Two, I care about him a lot. But three, at some point, I'm going to just stop. It's not even that he's getting defensive. That he's so part of taking feedback is doing something with it, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I am not suggesting that he would have to take all of my feedback to heart. But in all these years, you know, there are some areas where it's just been ignored, and that's absolutely his prerogative. But then it's my prerogative to, at some point, to say, you know what, he doesn't want to hear feedback in that area, and
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stop. So I think you were saying it is a dance, right? It is a delivery decision. There's a lot of factors in it. I think history is one of those.
Mhm.
I just finished a Cal class, and one of the things I was emphasizing to people in the curve is getting the feedback, digesting the feedback, right? Figuring out what's valuable to you, and what the wheat, separating the wheat from the chaff, right? Then once you have the wheat, then internalize it and then take action on it. Meaning like do a discernible outward action, change your behavior so that the people who gave you the feedback can say, ah, it actually landed. And Josh or Bob did something with it. So I think there's like a loop to the feedback. I'd love to hear your response to that.
Yeah, the one tweak that I have learned to put on that cycle is I used to take feedback and like blindly apply it. What I learned to do is that wasn't the intent.
Yep.
So what I over time learned how to do was receiving that feedback, thinking through it, and uh, normalizing it for myself and how I
Exactly.
work and who I want to be, and that maybe wasn't, maybe I didn't take 100% of what they said or how I should do it, but I spun it to make it operate for Josh, because what works
Yep.
for someone else isn't necessarily going to work the same way for me. And learning and understanding that helped me establish and maintain my style of leadership that I thought was pretty good. I think is pretty good.
It is.
And but that was a couple years, well, probably more than a couple, probably like 5 years of learning how to receive the feedback. To your point, separating the bits and pieces, but also, okay, so, like, here's the nuggets.
Yeah,
Now what do
exactly.
I do with that nugget? Maybe I melt it down and make it into something else, or maybe I just take the nugget and just move it over here and it's solid
Exactly.
gold? So
Exactly.
that's a key thing that, you might be doing and you might not know, is that it's not it's not to be taken verbatim.
And that's something I learned. I learned early on. I learned that. I think maybe one of the epiphanies for me with that was my first book. And I was writing a book, and I sent it out to technical editors. So like 15 people who could have written the book, right? They were technical peers in that space, and um, and they barked about it, the book a lot.
Yeah, just
They were
just like my puppy.
exactly. But so I got 15 streams. So the good news was I got 15 streams of feedback. And since they were designers, they were technical folks, it was pretty detailed. Uh, the bad news is I got 15 streams of feedback, and now I had to figure out what to take and what to reject. And it was all valid, but getting comfortable with it's not all true. Like I have to determine the truth of the feedback. That's another mistake I think people make is they sometimes to your like what you were alluding to, all feedback is true. No, no, there's falseness, not lies, but there's falseness in feedback. Let's figure out what's false, maybe based on their perspective, or maybe based on they don't have your point of view, or a variety of factors. Look for the truth in it, and then apply that and get really comfortable with throwing things away and not taking it personal or not feeling bad. That's a natural part of, I think, the feedback process. So getting editor feedback. The other thing is my voice. I don't want to lose. So there's 15 people giving me feedback, but then there's Bob Galen, who's the author, and I don't want to try to serve these 15 streams of feedback and lose my own voice. So I always had to double check, and that book experience has sort of carried into my feedback as a leader, etc. And I'm always sort of, that's one of the reasons why I need a pause. I took ORS training, and they talked about this, a little extreme, but they one of the tools or the metaphors in ORS, which is a coaching class, is looking for 2% truth. So they use that for people who get very defensive. So it's like you're not looking for 50% truth. You're not looking. They said, can you find the one little nugget that you could agree with, and then do something with that? And I think that's a nice place to start for people who get ultra defensive. Right? Is bring the truthometer down to something that's so narrow that you can find it, and then find more, and then find more, and then find more.
The truthometer is now a thing, so everybody start using that. It's surprising, given your discomfort with feedback, that you've written so many books, because the world of books, especially on the internet, is review heavy, and
It's
and
and and
putting
critique
yourself
heavy.
out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
It,
that's
it's it's
interesting that you keep doing it.
You know what, though? It's changed, I think, for me personally. This is an interesting aside, or maybe, but early on, I would get people didn't understand my intent. One, they weren't assuming positive intent, and I didn't have a track record. So if I misspoke something, the vultures would attack me. And since I'm a perfectionist, and you know this about me, and I don't handle feedback well, it would have, and I care about the community, that it would really hurt me. actually, a lot. It didn't stop me. I'm thankful that it didn't stop me, but it could have stopped me. It really was hurtful. I mean, and sometimes people like they assumed negative intent.
Yeah.
Uh, and a lot of times these were people. This wasn't just common folks. This was like pundits. It was, regular folks in the community, but also like, thought leaders would attack me, and either publicly and or privately. Um, but now I think what's happened is I still get that. I still have to have a thick skin, um, and delay. But I think more people in the community know that where my heart is at or where my intentions are. So if I misspeak, a lot of them assume positive, and more of them assume positive intent, and don't attack me. Um, and in some cases, those SMEs, those thought leaders, I attack them back, right? So I do reserve the right to get feisty, and so
Yeah.
maybe I've just frightened them away or something like that. But you're absolutely right. That's actually, I think that's one of the reasons why people don't write or don't do some of the things we do. Is it's not a friendly
Yeah.
world sometimes from a feedback point of view.
Right. The last thing I'd like to cover is try and give the listeners slash viewers, because this one's on video too, some of the like ways to get through that initial sting and start to do the hard work of separating the useful from the not so useful or useless, if you want to go that far. Just ways, because I know so many people that struggle this, and I was lucky to have this like beaten out of me, uh, but not everybody has that path. So how can we help people? What are tools we can give folks
So
to
can we
about
can
that?
we put that on the table for a second and go somewhere else first?
Sure.
And I want to get there. That to me is an end. Can we talk a few minutes about how to get it?
Yeah.
Like, what are ways to get feedback? What are, and I know it may sound obvious, like asking for it, right? So ask someone for feedback, but then that doesn't always get you feedback because you have to have, there's a relationship bit and a safety bit, uh, and there's a tenured bit. Like, what is our relationship? What is the tenure of that? So I could walk up to you in the street, you don't know me from Adam, and I say, Josh, tell me what you think of my agile chops. Um,
Yeah.
and and so I ask for feedback, but it's, what level am I going to get, and what do I do with it? So how do we get feedback? Just a random set of effective
Yeah.
ways.
Y- Asking is obvious, but there's more to it. I think one of the things you can do is clearly demonstrating that you find value in it, that as you learn, see, hear things, you grab it and run with it and start making changes. Um, because you can work with somebody and know uh, whether they're open to feedback or not, just the way that they operate, the way they respond in meetings or
Yep,
to an email or anything. You
yep.
can tell if that defensive posture shows right up or not.
One of my favorite pieces of advice for product owners with Scrum teams is to take feedback from a sprint review. Not all the feedback, but I'm like, every once in a while, take a critical bit of feedback that you got, like a feature feedback from a stakeholder or something, and nail it in the next sprint. Like, show people that you care and you were listening,
Mhm.
i.e., take action on the feedback. I'm like, and what will happen is that engenders, now they know, to me, there's feedback level one or DEF CON level one feedback, which is superficial, and you want to get to DEF CON level five feedback, and in order to get that, I think you have to prove that you're going to take action on some of it, right? And I've seen that increase the interactive and the engagement loop on the part of stakeholders, because the aha goes off and it's like, oh my God, I'm not just talking to myself. Like, people are
Right. Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
paying attention to me.
Yeah. One of the things that I've had to coach my kids on through sports is I've had to help them understand that coaches, sporting coaches, invest their energy, which often is manifested in yelling,
Yeah.
in players that they think can take it and use it to get better. And I've said, as soon as a coach stops yelling,
Yep.
they've decided you've like topped out, and they're not going to invest time and energy trying to help you get better because you've shown you don't receive the feedback and you're not going to get better. So the potential isn't there. So I had to get them comfortable with like, hey, this is actually a good thing. So it's very similar to what Bob just said is you have to show a willingness to take action. Maybe not blind 100% action. I'm going to do exactly what you say, but okay, I hear you. Here's how we twisted it for this because of X, Y, and Z. And again, show that you'll receive it. And then that door goes from cracked to being kicked open as far as the floodgate of feedback.
I agree. Another way to get feedback, I think, is to give it. So I think
Yeah.
there's a reciprocal nature to it, right? Giving, getting, giving. Which cart before the horse? I don't know. It's start, but and again, it's that level 1 to level 5 or what. I'm joking a little bit, Metacasters, but getting into deeper feedback, you have to earn that. But to your boss, like, are you giving feedback? So Josh, if I was reporting to Josh, it's not just one-way feedback, Josh, to me. Um, and Josh and I have talked about this. Leaders don't get a lot of feedback. You can really engender yourself and really support a leader by giving them
Mhm,
valid feedback. Now they have to receive it well and they have to make it safe, etc. But you also have to step into that. But I think being on both sides of that loop increases the quality of the feedback. Oh, the other thing is I would say, Josh, is don't forget positive feedback,
mhm,
right? And I was in this cow class again this week, and this is my bad. When I talk about radical candor or crucial conversations, I very often bring up these constructive examples or negative examples, and and I over lean into that, and those are important. The reason I lean into it is people are uncomfortable with those situations, so I'm leaning into it. But I lean so hard that I forget that half of your conversations or half of your feedback should be positive, right? Or appreciative feedback, particularly if you're a leader. In a team, if you're a team member, are you saying nice things to anyone? I think going on both sides, making sure you're not leaning one way or the other.
Yeah, a lot of places I've helped out in the past couple of decades, there was a missing piece of trust. And so when there isn't trust, feedback cycles either don't exist or they're painful. And that's where leaders forget title. Someone that's going to be a leader extends trust first. And then that starts to create that space where I trust you and we're going to give this feedback and we're going to hear it and we're going to do something positive with it. But there's so many times where it's like this high noon standoff where both sides are standing at the end of that dusty street,
Yep.
just
Yep.
staring at each other, waiting for the other one to flinch. When in reality, what needs to happen is someone on the other side has to put the gun down and walk across and shake a hand, and then that changes the game. Someone has to start that game of trust. Otherwise, it's just going to be a stalemate forever, and no one's going to be happy.
Absolutely. Another thing with feedback is you want to be perfect in your prose, but so a lot of people, one of the inhibitors uh, is perfection. I want to have it's a hard bit of feedback, so I want to polish it so that it's perfectly received or something. Uh, and then you can convince yourself not to give it. So avoidance is, or perfection. Uh, I would argue that just giving it, like doing it well, is nice, but giving feedback, even if it's in a crappy package, or it's not eloquent, or it's not, it doesn't flow, still giving feedback, lean into giving feedback, right?
Yeah,
And then get better at it over time.
yeah, don't let perfect be the enemy of good is the old saying, and
Yeah,
that can happen. The other key thing is freshness, giving
yeah,
that
yeah,
feedback as close to in the moment as possible, because the longer you wait, like maybe you're nervous to give the feedback or you're trying to polish it exactly the way you want to say it. So by the time you go to give the feedback, it's like 2 weeks later and the context is mostly lost in that moment where the thing happened, good or bad.
yeah.
So that's why that freshness is so important because it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Hey, Josh, why don't we flip it? I wanted to flip to the front, and I think we covered that a little bit.
Mhm.
Can we go back to your point? You were on the how do you digest it? What are some guidance
Yeah.
around filtering it and things like that? Do you want to go back there?
Yeah. Yeah, to have that walk away if I'm struggling to not get defensive, what are some tips and or tricks that I can start to apply that will help me try to figure out how to disconnect it as and not see it as a personal attack upon myself?
So I gave one. I just want to re-amplify it. I think 2% truth is a really effective way to do that because out of 100% of whatever you've said, you're only out of every 100 words of feedback, you're only looking for the 2 words that where there's a nugget of truth that you can take action on. So that helps me. I've applied that even before I knew about it. I've applied that view of I was trying to look for the truth as opposed to reacting to the whole. Um, and I think if you're if that's a problem that you have, then go to a narrow truth. Just look for one. Just start with is there one nugget there that I can agree with?
Yeah.
And if that's true, well, then take action on that nugget.
The the spin that I put on that very similar approach, but it just kind of how it works with my brain is I talk a lot about everybody's path to here is different. So no one has walked in your shoes. No one knows exactly the path that you have to here and the actual moments that led up towards whatever happened where the feedback is coming from. So accept that they haven't walked in your shoes, but that doesn't mean you discard it, but just understand the angle and the lens that it's coming from, because that will help you separate out that 2% that really lines up. Because the opinion and the view that they have is valid, but it's valid from the lens that they're looking through, which may be orthogonal to yours. So just parsing that out, that's a mental approach that I take is it's coming at it from a different angle, but there's still bits in there that add value.
I love what you said. So, Josh, you were building empathy into it. So, look at the feedback. If I paraphrase, look at the feedback from their point of view.
Mhm.
So, I get feedback from Josh, and I think the Metacasters this is a powerful sort of point. So, Josh gives me feedback. Before I react, I look at the world, and this is scary to me, everyone, because he's bigger than I am, and I've gone side by side with him, and I've tried to. If you've seen those Metacast videos, it's I'm relatively small, but look at the world. What is his lens? What is his intent? What is our relationship? Um, what is he trying to tell me? Maybe even what he didn't tell me. Maybe he's trying to be soft, etc. And then flip it back, look at it through his eyes, and then look at it through my eyes. I think we should all, whether we're defensive or not, take that approach for the feedback. It's like build the empathy because that'll help you understand where the truth is, right? That'll really help with the truth
Yeah,
filtering.
and that's a very valuable tool when giving the feedback is understanding that the lenses that the 2 of you have aren't perfectly overlapping. So
Yep.
understanding that there is likely something in that person's world that you don't know about. There's a gap in your understanding of what they're working with, against, or whatever that might have made that behavior 100% absolutely the best, but you assume things and you fill in your own world and assume the way that they operate or think or believe or whatever it might be. And then that creates that tension because you don't spend the time to understand that person and what their lens looks like.
Well, Josh just did that Metacasters with his sports coach story with his children, right? So if I'm Josh's child, and I could be, if I'm Josh's child, I, and I'm getting yelled at by a coach, I'm immediately going to overreact and trigger to that, right? They're yelling at me. I'm looking at it from how am I, here I am working my hardest. Here I am. I just had a great game. Here I am doing this stuff. And I'm just considering my lens. But then he shared that other lens. You know what? Coaches, yes, they're yelling, but they're doing it because they want to grow you because they see potential. Now bring that back It was still obnoxious. They swore at me, they spit. I can cut through all of that, but you know what? There's some nuggets of truth in there, and I can get to those nuggets of truth from that. I was like, you know what? That was performance feedback. They're right. 10% of what they told me I can use to increase the performance in my baseball swing or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And people, I don't think a lot of folks do what you're talking or what we're talking about, Josh. It's more so on the face. We take the feedback on the face of things,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just the words, it's the emotion, it's the delivery. Like the
Yeah.
yelling is a one delivery. If it's in anger, and then we respond in kind.
Yeah.
Anything else to land it? Go ahead.
No, I mean it just is like a lot of people when I'm new to working with them, they tend to tiptoe around the feedback and soften it before they give it to me. And one of the things that I do, similar to that, like extending trust part, is say,
Yep.
like, listen, you're going to have to work really hard to offend me with anything that you're going to say. You know, the only time I'm going to like question is if you like pick up a table or a chair and throw it at me. Because like those are the moments in football where it's like, okay, this dude's totally lost it. But like you could say anything to me. And so I right out of the gate create that environment where it's like bring on the feedback because I want it. And then I start showing that I do something with it. So that's how I create that bridge right out of the gate. Did we do
Did
it?
we did we do a good enough job? I feel like we covered this topic pretty well, Josh.
I feel good. I mean,
Hey,
this is my
hey,
favorite thing about
Metacasters, video, audio, give us feedback. All joking aside, give us feedback. Um, Not so much on our delivery. I care about the delivery, and this is an example of you can ask for feedback, but make it very pointed, right? You can narrow the feedback. What I'm looking for is in the topic area of giving, receiving, actioning feedback. Is there some ideas, tools, techniques that we missed or didn't discuss that you could drop in and share with other Metacasters? So we'll take any feedback, but I'd really be interested in sort of deepening this wonderful discussion around feedback in all directions.
it. Agreed. A couple things, a couple ways for you to do that. This will be on our YouTube channel. I will make sure the link is in the show notes so you can post comments there. We have a Discord server where you can come in and post thoughts. We now have like a Q&A session where the community is going to respond because they're pretty freaking amazing. And also social channels like everywhere. So the best places for you to do this are going to be in Discord because not only is it us there, but it's members of the community like you that can jump in and help. Otherwise, your second best is probably because this is a video one on our YouTube channel because that's just made for comments. So that's where you can focus and give us feedback on the feedback.
No, I mean, I think that's actually part of part of our practice of it is we can have a broad, like, tell me how, so let's end the episode on this. I'm getting inspired again. Maybe there's a part two in this, Josh. It's like if I ask Josh, like, Josh, give me some feedback. It's so open-ended that he's now that trust me, Metacasters, that is not going to stop Josh. Josh is going to step into that invitation. But
Yes.
but a lot of people won't. Or give me some feedback on, sort of how I handled myself yesterday in the meeting. Was I encouraging enough? Did I create safety enough? Now we're talking about, so the scope of that feedback request. Make sure you're controlling that scope. Tell me how or give me some negative, give me some negative feedback. Give me
Mhm.
some constructive criticism. Those are not good ways to solicit feedback. Be more specific.
Yes. Agreed. And the other cool thing that does is that puts a reminder in that person's brain for the next time where
Ah,
maybe they weren't watching as closely, but now they're like, "Oh, okay, I can help Bob. So let me really pay attention to this." And then I'll eagerly run to Bob and say, "Hey, Bob, like here, this is great." And then talk
ex-
through it.
what a nice way to end this episode. I like that. That sort of, it builds on itself. Is absolutely true. So if you're seeing that build, you're doing something good. If you're not seeing that build over time, then you need to improve on your feedback loops. Hey, Josh,
Hey, Bob.
from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina.
And
And
Fuquay, North Carolina.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake.
And Big.
Take care, y'all.